Right now, millions of homeowners are installing kitchen features that look incredible on day one and create real problems by month 3. I know because I am the one they call when things go wrong. After 25 years of designing kitchens, I can tell you exactly which 5 trendy features are quietly making kitchens worse across the country in 2026. And the worst part? Most people will not realize the damage until the renovation is done and the money is spent. Now, this is not a rant. I have installed every single one of these features. Some of them can be beautiful when done right, but most people are not doing them right. They are copying what they see online without understanding the trade-offs. So before you sign off on anything, let me show you what I would think twice about and exactly why. What feels right today can turn into something you have to fix later, and fixing it is always more expensive. Subscribe and hit like before you pay for it twice. Appliance garages sound perfect on paper. Hide the clutter, keep the counters clean, close the doors, and everything disappears. Visually, they look fantastic. But there is a problem. Most appliance garages either become a black hole of clutter or a permanently open cabinet that nobody ever bothers closing. For an appliance garage to actually work, 3 things have to happen. First, it needs to be large enough for real appliances, not just your toaster. Think coffee machine, blender, maybe even your stand mixer. Second, it needs power inside. And third, you need clearance to actually use the appliance without pulling it out every single time. If you have to drag the coffee machine out every single morning, the garage becomes friction, not function. And here is the detail that makes or breaks the whole concept. The door type. If the door swings out and blocks your counter space, you will stop closing it. Guaranteed. Within a week, it becomes permanently open, and now you just have a shelf with extra steps. The fix is simple. Use a roll-up tambour door or sliding pocket doors that tuck away inside the cabinet. That one change is the difference between an appliance garage you actually use and one that becomes your most expensive junk drawer. And here is the bigger issue I see. Appliance garages often steal prime real estate in your prep zone. They are usually placed in an upper cabinet right above valuable counter space. So now you have broken up your most important work zone to hide something that you might not even bother closing. And my biggest pet peeve? When someone puts an appliance garage inside their walk-in pantry. The whole pantry is the garage. Do not add friction where you do not need to. Now, when do they make sense? They work beautifully in larger kitchens where you have excess counter space, or when placed in a dead corner that would not be usable prep area anyway. They are also ideal for homeowners who truly value visual minimalism and are disciplined about keeping the space organized. Keyword: disciplined. A new kitchen is not going to automatically make you an organized person. That is the hardest truth in renovation. If your natural tendency leans toward clutter, an appliance garage will just give clutter a more expensive home. Open shelving. Alright, this next one. You knew it was coming. Open shelves. They look light. They look airy. They look minimal. And in the right home, they can genuinely be beautiful. But here's the big catch. Open shelving is not for storage. It is for display. That is the part most people do not fully think through. Everything on those shelves has to look good all the time. That means matching dishware, intentional styling, no clutter, no randomness. But real kitchens have randomness. That is just the facts of living. Beyond the aesthetics, there is function. Open shelves collect dust. They collect grease. And if they are anywhere near your range, you will be cleaning them far more often than you ever expected. I had a client in Arizona who told me the dust alone made her regret them within 3 months. And if you live in California, there is another issue nobody mentions. Earthquakes. Open shelves in a seismic zone? That is your grandmother's china becoming a floor mosaic at 3 in the morning. Now, I do want to acknowledge something important. If you have ADHD or similar executive function challenges, open shelving can actually be a real help. When things are behind closed doors, they can become invisible. Out of sight, out of mind. For some people, seeing their items is how they remember they exist. If that is you, lean into it. Just be strategic about placement. Keep open shelves away from the stove and accept that a weekly wipe down is part of the deal. For everyone else, open shelving works best in small doses. An accent area, a coffee bar, maybe one feature wall. But when homeowners replace too many upper cabinets with open shelves, they almost always regret the lost storage and the constant visual pressure of having to stage their kitchen like a magazine shoot. Use them strategically and sparingly, and they can add personality without sacrificing too much function. But if you are being honest with yourself and you know tidiness is not your strong suit, just go with the cabinets. They hide the chaos, and that is perfectly fine. Pot fillers. Alright, this next one might ruffle some feathers. Pot fillers. They look luxurious, right? Fill your pasta pot right at the stove. No carrying heavy water from the sink. Very high-end feel. But there is a lot that rarely gets discussed. First, you still have to carry the pot back to the sink to drain it. So you have solved half the problem, but the heavy half, the dangerous half, the boiling water half, that is still on you. One commenter put it perfectly. Let us stop calling it a pot filler and start calling it a faucet with no drain. Maybe then the trend will die. Second, and this is something that will make you think twice. If you only use your pot filler a couple of times a month, that water has been sitting stagnant in the pipes for weeks. Stagnant water in metal pipes can develop bacteria and leach contaminants. Are you really going to remember to flush the line every time before you fill your cooking pot? Because if not, that luxury faucet might be delivering water you would not want to drink. Third, every contractor and renovator I have spoken to says the same thing. Pot fillers have multiple articulating joints and arms, and joints eventually fail. It is not a question of if it leaks, it is a question of when. And when it does, there is no sink underneath to catch it. That water goes straight into your wall, behind your stove, where you cannot see it until the damage is already done. And here is something else nobody shows you in the showroom. That beautiful brass or chrome faucet is mounted directly behind your stove. Every time you sear a steak, make a stir fry, or boil a sauce, grease and steam are coating that thing. Now you have another item to deep clean behind your range, and good luck getting into all those joints and articulating arms with a sponge. Now, here is what is interesting. In Europe, nobody really uses pot fillers. They use boiling water taps that deliver instant hot water right from the main faucet. Or they just use an electric kettle. Faster, cleaner, no extra plumbing. And in the commercial Vietnamese kitchens where this concept actually originated, the stove has a drain built into it, so they can fill and empty right at the stove. We borrowed half the idea and left the useful half behind. Now, I want to be fair. If you have mobility issues, chronic pain, or a disability that makes carrying a full pot genuinely difficult, a pot filler can be a real quality of life improvement. That is a legitimate use case and I respect it completely. But for most kitchens, I think there is a far better solution. A prep sink that is more centrally located near your range top. It can help with pot filling, but it also has a drain. It does double duty for prep work, and it does not create a leak risk inside your wall. Or, honestly, just use a pitcher, fill it at the sink, walk it over, costs you nothing, no plumber required. Island seating. This next one is somewhat controversial because almost everyone wants it. Island seating. And I understand why. It feels social, it feels modern, it feels connected. Google search a beautiful kitchen and you will likely see an island with seating. But here's the tension. Your island is your primary workspace. It does not matter if you have 10 feet of counter space elsewhere and a 3-foot island. You will end up prepping on that island. That is just how kitchens work. So now you are seating people directly in your workspace. Backpacks land on your prep surface. kids are leaning in. Guests are crowding the cooking zone right when you need room the most. Dimensionally, proper island seating requires more room than most people realize. A minimum 24 inches wide per person for elbow room. At least 15 inches of overhang depth for comfortable knee space. And proper aisle clearance behind those stools. If you squeeze it all in, the entire kitchen starts to feel tight and the island feels forced. And here is something that came up constantly when I talk to homeowners. Most families do not actually eat full meals at the island long term. It becomes a landing zone for mail, a temporary perch for the kids, or a home workstation. If you already have a dining table nearby, you might be sacrificing prep space for seating that rarely gets used for its intended purpose. Now, I need to say this: if you have small children, island seating can genuinely be magic. It brings them into what is happening at meal prep time without them being underfoot. Some of our favorite family memories happened with the kids perched up at the island. But here's what I wish more designers would say out loud. If you or anyone in your household has back problems, chronic pain, or mobility issues, those tall bar stools are going to become furniture you actively avoid. Standard bar height seating with no lumbar support is genuinely uncomfortable for extended sitting, especially as we get older. Consider table height seating instead, or a two-level island where one side drops down to standard table height. Your back will thank you in 5 years. And one more thing that honestly surprises me how often I see it. Putting a cooktop in the island, directly facing your seated guests. You are now splattering hot oil toward the people you are trying to feed. There is no backsplash to protect them. If your stove must go in the island, never face it directly towards seating. Stagger the layout or add a raised partition between the cooking surface and the seating area. When does island seating work well? It works beautifully when the kitchen has generous clearance on all sides, when the island is intentionally oversized to accommodate both prep and social space, and when the seating is positioned thoughtfully so it does not compete with your main work zone. Workstation sinks. The last one on my list is definitely something people ask about a lot. Workstation sinks, integrated cutting boards, drying racks, colanders, sliding accessories. I understand the appeal. They promise efficiency in a compact footprint, and they look really cool in the showroom. But here is my honest take after years of feedback from real homeowners. Not all of those accessories are created equal, and that is the part nobody tells you up front. So let me give you my accessory by accessory verdict. The roll-up drying rack, keep it. This is the one accessory that almost everyone uses daily. It lives in the sink, it folds away in seconds, and it genuinely earns its place. The colander insert, useful, especially if you wash a lot of produce or rinse rice regularly. Worth having. The cutting board, here's the truth. You will use your regular cutting board on the counter 10 times for every one time you reach for the sink-mounted one. It is just not how most people naturally prep. And the decorative garnish trays, the specialty accessories, those are going straight to the basement. I know, because mine did. And every homeowner I have asked tells me the same story. Now here's the real question. Are you going to remove and store those accessories every single night? Honestly, or are they going to sit stacked inside your sink permanently? Because if they just pile up in there, your sink becomes harder to use for its primary job, which is being a sink. I have a workstation sink myself, and I will be completely honest with you. All of the specialty accessories ended up in the basement. The drying rack stayed. Everything else was just not how I actually used my kitchen. Now, when is a workstation sink the right call? They genuinely shine in compact kitchens where counter space is limited and every inch needs to multitask. They are excellent in condos, apartments, or secondary kitchens where you simply do not have room for a separate prep zone. But in average to larger kitchens, a properly sized prep zone beside a large single basin sink will often work better, feel less crowded, and give you fewer things to clean and store. The takeaway: if you want a workstation sink, commit to 2 accessories maximum. Have a storage plan for anything you do not use daily. And be honest with yourself about whether you are buying the accessories or the idea of the accessories. Now, here is the part I want to be very clear about. None of these ideas are bad. I have designed beautiful kitchens with every single one of them, but they worked because the homeowner understood the trade-offs before they committed. Trends are not dangerous. Unexamined trends are. And I want to leave you with something that almost nobody in this industry talks about, but it matters more than any trend. If you are over 55, or if you plan to stay in this home for the next 15 or 20 years, every single one of these decisions changes. That heavy pot you are carrying from the sink today, it gets heavier every year. Those tall bar stools, they become a back problem. Those upper cabinets you filled, can you still reach the top shelf comfortably? Design your kitchen for the body you will have in 10 years, not just the one you have today. When you are planning your kitchen, the question should never be, is this popular? It should be, what problem does this solve for me? And what new problem does it introduce? Because every feature adds something and takes something away.